What's up, everybody? Metal Dave here, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, bringing you another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Today, we are honored to have drummer Andy Parker from UFO on the show. Man, what a treat this was. Obviously, the man and the music needs no introduction. So many classic albums. We all owe a debt to UFO. We all have their records. What a great band. What a great legacy. We talk about a number of things today. He was very kind to give us so much time. We delved into the history of UFO. And I guess as far as a timely angle, there is a reissue of the No Place to Run album currently coming out on Chrysalis Records. It is an expanded, remastered version of the 1980 album. It is a double CD, triple vinyl release. And it includes a live show from 1980 recorded at the Marquee in London. So you get, that's the new part of the release. Remastered studio album and the inclusion of a live performance also from 1980. Man, so much fun. And it was really cool to hear that Andy really endorses this re-release. A lot of times these things get done by the label and the band really has no say-so, or they're not even aware of it.
That's usually the norm.
Yeah, but it sounds like from what he tells us, he was consulted every step of the way. They approved a lot of things. He's real pleased with it. So that made me happy to hear
that right there is how it's supposed to happen.
Oh, yeah, I know. But
it does not. I mean, I've heard, Aerosmith has nothing to do with the cover art for their albums back when they were so busy. They're not going to sit around and approve the artwork for Draw the Line or whatever. I think that it's commonplace back then. But for a reissue after your legacy band, I feel like if, a label is in contact with management and the band, it's not hard to just send something over for them to look at and proofread and make sure it doesn't look like ass.
Right. So kudos to Chrysalis for taking the time to make sure it was done right, and I was really happy to hear that Andy is happy with it. No Place to Run record, interesting record for them, produced by George Martin, who of course was famous for his work with the Beatles. It was also the first record for UFO post the departure of Michael Schenker, so interesting time in the band's history. And of course we had to talk about Strangers in the Night and the whole, how they poached Michael Schenker from the Scorpions, which is a funny story.
Finally, I got some, some real information on the story that I've been telling. I've literally been telling people that story for years, probably when they didn't even want to hear the story. I made them listen to, Michael Schenker is my favorite guitar player, and he used to be in the Scorpions. Oh, I've heard of the Scorpions. And then you go into this whole thing as, which would be a reason that we have a podcast, I must say, is the nerd comes out, right? And I tell the story, or attempt to tell the story, about how UFO poached Michael Schenker from the Scorpions at the age of 17. Mm-hmm. I found out today, and he's going to tell the story in these episodes, so don't wait for me to finish this, but the interpreter was someone that you've heard of if you're a fan of the Scorpions. So, because Michael Schenker did not know English. He knew German only. So, very, very cool about how I got some closure, or whatever you would call the story was corrected. And
to your credit, you weren't far off. I mean,
it was close.
I think Andy filled in a couple minor details, but you were basically spot on. So yeah. And the little details that he added today are just pure gold. So yeah, that made it all really interesting. Great story there. And we should mention that Andy lives in Texas, has been living in Texas for 20 years now. Yeah. He lives in a town called Granbury, and plays with a UFO tribute band called Lights Out.
Out of Houston.
Yeah. They've done a few shows. Eddie Trunk has emceed a couple of those shows. They've done really well, great response. And it sounds like they're trying to gear up to do some more. Andy was mentioning October as a possible time to look out for Lights Out, featuring Andy on drums. And I got to give a shout to John Adams, the guitar player from Lights Out. He is the guy that put me in touch with Andy. so made all this possible in a not so roundabout way. So thank you very much, John.
Yeah, he's good. John Adams is good people.
Yeah, I do appreciate the contact, and it made all this possible today. So, yeah, what an honor. We get to say that quite often on this show. We're very lucky in that regard.
Yeah, and thank God for Etsy.
Yeah, and we'll let that story speak for itself here in just a moment. But yes.
Etsy connects rock and roll people.
Who knew? Who knew? Yeah, honored to have him today, Andy Parker from UFO on the Talk Louder podcast.
Ask away. Let's get some work done.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me preface this by saying some of my questions are going to be repeats from the last time you and I talked, because I interviewed you a couple months ago for a different outlet, the San Antonio Express News. But for the sake of our audience on the Talk Louder podcast, I'd like to re-ask some of those questions. And then my friend here, Jason, of course, has questions of his own.
Right.
But let's start with you living in Texas. You've been living in Texas for more than 20 years. And how did that come to be?
It's coming up on 20. In November, it'll be 20 years.
20 years. What brought you to Texas? How did you end up in Texas? Because I was surprised to learn that.
Well, I wanted to come back to the States. I went back to England from California in 94 and went to work for my family. I was kind of pretty much out of the music business then. And I went to work for my family, which I did for nearly 12 years, but it wasn't going the way I wanted, and it was very, very, very stressful. I mean, it paid okay, and we did fairly well financially out of it, but I just got to the stage where it's like, man, my dad died of a stroke at 64 because he worked himself to death, and I'm thinking, go in the same damn direction, And I said, my wife, I really want. Oh, thank you, darling. This is no place for me. And,
Thank you.
I said to her, I really want to go back to the States. I can't do this. And what we'd actually planned to come back and being I was in construction for many years, and we were going to flip houses and make a living that way. But right before we came back, I got a call from the band wanting me to come back and do a show in Spain with them. But the reason we ended up in Texas is because my wife had family here in Dallas, and she didn't want to go to Dallas. I hate Dallas. It was like, and a friend of hers that she's known since college was a property developer, and he said, well, have you checked it? You should check out Granbury. It's a really cool little town. I'm doing some stuff there. So she went on the internet from work. She used to work for GSK, this pharmaceutical company, when we were in England. And she went on, a lunch hour looking at stuff and saw the price of property and went, oh, my God, it's like chump change. And so we bought 2 houses here, never ever came here, just bought them over the internet and rented them out.
In Granbury?
In Granbury, yeah.
Yeah, my guitar player lives in Granbury.
Your guitar player?
Yeah, my guitar player lives in Granbury. I bet he doesn't know that Andy Parker lives in Granbury.
What are we talking about?
Scott Dalhoover has lived in Granbury for 12 years.
What's his name?
His name is Scott Dalhoover.
Scott Dalhoover.
Yeah.
I've not come across the name, but I'd love to meet him.
Yeah. You guys, he would love to meet you. He's got a little studio. He has a drum kit set up all the time. If you ever wanted to just roll over and warm up,
so
he'd probably have you.
You have a band?
Oh, Mini. Yeah, Mini.
This guy, Dangerous Toys.
Yeah, Scott and I have a band since our debut came out in the summer '89.
Wow.
Band called Dangerous Toys.
Right.
Yeah, I've been around.
What do you do?
I'm the singer.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
Hey, while we're getting chummy here, and I love this so much. It's let me just bleed for a second. It is a total honor to talk to you. I was 12 years old. I'm from Corpus Christi, Texas.
Oh, right. Love that town.
Yes, and I saw you as my first concert supporting Rush.
Ah.
77. I was 12 years old.
Right.
Life-changing.
Now, was that the one where they were still doing stuff from 2112 and was
yes.
it Farewell to Kings?
Yes, Farewell to Kings. Yeah. And I think you guys were either Lights Out or Obsession. I think you played a couple things from Obsession. At least Too Hot to Handle.
Yeah, because I think we'd done some shows with them previous to that tour, but that was a big one, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe Max Webster, of course.
Yeah, Max Webster. They opened, we were in the middle, and then Rush,
Yeah, and it was life-changing and unbelievable. Michael was still wearing the one-piece leotard,
right.
the white boots.
Yeah,
exactly. the go-go boots.
That's hilarious. They had laces, and he had to buy nylon cord because they laced so far up.
Yeah.
It took him hours. I mean, why no Velcro or a zipper? I have no idea, but he decided laces. It used to take him hours to lace himself into those things.
Wow, that's dedication.
Yes. Right.
Anyway, it was like going to church, and it changed my life, and it made me want to play music. Yeah.
I mean, Texas was always great for us. I mean, we spent nearly a month here just in Texas,
Well, it's big enough. You could tour for 2 weeks in Texas and not play the same city.
Exactly. I mean, there was everywhere. In fact, there's an album, the Parker's Birthday album, that originally we put out as our own bootleg, and then it got snapped up and done as something else. But
oh wow,
recorded in Midland, Texas. But the weird thing is that Phil always used to say on that particular tour, every night he would announce it was my birthday just to get a rise out of the audience, right?
Yeah.
So, and it just happened that particular night, it was my birthday.
Oh.
March 31st. It was 1980, whatever. And and the recording was off the desk, but it was pretty good, and it ended up being released. So,
wow, I need that's one I do not have.
Oh, really?
What is it called?
It was called originally. It was called Parker's Birthday. Okay. And what we did, when I came back in the band, I think when we did Walk on Water, I think we were trying to raise some money, and the manager at the time said, "Man, there's all these bootlegs. We should just put our own bootleg out." And I said, "Well, I've got these tapes I've been, carrying around for years from the desk," and we went through them, and that was one of the better ones. So we put it out. But then I think maybe did Cleopatra end up releasing it? I think on something. Not without our permission, but with our permission and stuff. But so it's out there. I'll have to look and see if I've got a copy somewhere. But it's out there. Parker's Birthday, or then it came out under another name too. So you'll probably find it.
Yeah, no worries. I'm sure I can find it.
March 21st in 1982, 3, something like that. I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm glad you enjoyed the gig. Obviously, it was a good one.
Oh my God, I shed tears. Like literally, it was an emotional response. I don't know. Well, in '75, I was and still am a huge Elton John fan.
Right.
And then Queen, and then I discovered Kiss, and then you guys and Rush and Thin Lizzy, and just all of that really great. Proto metal, like almost kind of, and then I fell in love with Judas Priest, and then I went to hell in a handbasket after that.
Yeah, the Priest, man.
Yeah.
Do you remember that stuff they went through back in the late 80s or 90s when they were taken to court?
Yeah.
Someone killed himself.
Yeah.
In Vegas or somewhere, and every day they were in the damn courtroom. That was crazy. I used to watch them. I lived in California.
The fucked up thing is that was a cover song. It was Better by You, Better Than Me. It was like a Spooky Tooth song.
I know. Yeah. It's off of is it off Spooky 2 maybe? I can't remember.
It's on Stained Class.
Yeah, the Priest version is on Stained Class.
Yeah, I don't know, but what happens?
Yeah, I was a huge Spooky Tooth fan.
Yeah.
So just the other day in the car they've had Gary Wright on, man. It's like, oh God, I remember doing gigs with this guy back in the 70s.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that shit. AM Gold, man, that really, when you're a child and you're going to the skating rink, that shit really talks to you. I mean, if it's no good, if it's crap, it should be easy to ignore, right? Well, all that good shit just it infects.
It turns out that's the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
That stuff come and gone, but that stuff still turns out.
Well, I love it that we're getting chummy here, but let's talk about you.
Okay. You know how I got to Granbury anyway. So
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
20 years on, yeah. And I love Texas, man. I have a feeling I've had past lives in Texas, so.
Oh, I like that. I like what you're saying right now. That's cool.
I feel really at home here. So,
Well, good, man. I'm glad it worked out for you. Obviously, it has 20 years. That's, obviously things are going well. And it was, I learned when I spoke to you last, I thought this was really cool. You currently play from time to time in a UFO tribute band called Lights Out.
Isn't that wild? And you missed the gig. I know something happened and you couldn't.
Yeah, I had I had to go to a funeral. Yeah.
They want us back there in October, apparently. So,
Oh,
at Fitzgerald's. So apparently we will be back there. And I told him just the other day, and he's looking for other shows. He's working on. They recorded a gig in Houston that we did. I've done 3 gigs with them. First one was like in Houston. It was somebody's birthday party, and then we did a gig at some rooftop place. I can't honestly. I should have downtown something. I don't know. Anyway, and they recorded that. They got a film crew and all this stuff in there and recorded it. And he's been working on it for months now. Mixing it and doing this and doing that. It's basically for promotion. So he has something to give people to.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we'll do some more.
That'd be great.
And I can actually walk again now. I can stand up straight because I hurt my back really bad.
Yeah, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, I didn't realize how long it takes to heal when you're my age. Doing something a 23-year-old should have been instead of a 73-year-old. So, so I won't do it again.
Right. Once is enough. What I thought was interesting is how the UFO tribute band, for people watching and listening, the band is called Lights Out. It's a UFO tribute band. Andy plays drums with them. I thought it was amazing how they found you. They had no idea because they're based in the Dallas area, right? So
Houston.
Oh, they're based in Houston. Okay.
Yeah, I know John Adams a little bit.
Oh, do you?
I've done some gigs with him, and
carry on. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I want to say I've got a really good buddy in Houston that I met in California that I spent some time in a band with called Jeff Morrison. And when this thing all came up and I was talking to Jeff about it, he said, I know John Adams, so I guess John does the circuit, he rubs shoulders with a lot of musicians. He has another band too. He has a Southern boogie band called Dead Man's Hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, but nice guy. And they're all nice guys.
Good people.
Yeah,
how did they find you? Because I thought this was just crazy.
I mean, why they didn't come? I mean, I have a website, a Mr. Parker Rocks website with all the stuff about UFO on it. But they got to me through my Etsy shop, and I told you about this when the pandemic was on, and my wife and I were just sequestered. We didn't go anywhere. I wasn't working on the house. I didn't want to go to the lumber yard. I was just, bored as shitless, as they say in England.
Yeah.
And I got back into wood turning, which I'd done in England when I was working for my family, just as a relaxation at the weekends. And I hadn't really done it here because there's so much work on the house that needed doing. I couldn't really justify going in my shop and spending time turning, just for my own pleasure when the house needed fixing. But in the pandemic, I'd done most of the house and I wasn't, so like I said, I didn't want to go to the lumber yard. So I got back into it. And then my daughter came to visit and I had about 40 or 50 pieces all stockpiled. They were all on top of the bookshelves in our bedroom. And she said, "Oh, Dad, you should sell these." I mean, no one's going to be. She says, "Yeah, you've got like a built-in, clientele with the band and everything." So she convinced me after a lot of moaning and groaning that I should open this site. Well, it has, people can message me through the site and ask questions about the pieces and stuff. And all of a sudden I get this message from this guy, John Adams in Houston, saying that he's got this UFO tribute band and they're between drummers and would I be interested in doing some shows with them? Well, my first reaction was, "Oh, Jesus, what do I want to do that for?" And then my wife said, "Well, it might be good." To be honest, I hadn't picked up a pair of sticks in probably 2 years since we came off the road in 2022, and I just don't seem to get round to it. I have an electronic kit in my music room, but unless there's people to play with, I'm not really that interested sitting on my own, practicing. Just not up my alley, as it were.
Right.
Anyway, So I thought about it, and I thought, well, I'll check them out. So I went on YouTube and saw some videos, and they seemed pretty competent, you know. So I said to her, well, I'll go down and do a rehearsal with them, and we'll see what happens. Well, because I met them, they were just great guys, and they can play. I mean, you know, they're good players.
Yeah.
So we did the first one, which I think was a friend of his birthday party, and then it got thrown open to everybody, you know. So that was really good, and I went, man, this is fun. And, you know, it's kind of like, okay, it's not that far away. I mean, Houston, it's like 4 hours for me, but, you know, on a grand scheme of things, not flying across the world and going through, you know, I knew all the stuff. I didn't have to learn anything, which was, and they wanted to pay me. So it's like, man, okay.
I mean, you pretty much just had to turn up, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, after the first show is when I messed my back up. But the fortunate thing was I could actually still sit and play. I could hardly walk. I was like bent double. The waist, and you're really suffering. You couldn't lift anything, couldn't do much, but I could actually sit at the kit and play, which is good because they'd got Eddie Trunk to come and compare two shows. They were already booked and tickets had sold and everything. And so I was very lucky, and they were wonderful, man. They didn't let me touch, and they just did everything for me, and I just had to stagger out onto the stage and sit at the kit, and it was great. And I mean, as I said, they're great guys and they're good players, and you know, I really enjoyed it. So I'm hoping we'll get to do some more.
Yeah, Eddie Trunk has been a huge UFO champion.
We should be paying him as our PR guy, you know.
Yeah.
He's fabulous, and it was good to see him. I hadn't seen him for a while, you know, and it was nice to get to see him again. And he's been fabulous for the band. I mean, he really kind of like brought us, you know, to another audience that probably didn't know about. I mean, especially with that metal show, because he was always talking about us on there. He had Vinny on there, I think, and in fact, he wanted to get me and Mike McCready on there, but we could never get the, you know, that's when the band was still touring, and we could never kind of sync it up, and then they got cancelled. So I guess it won't happen now, but because I didn't realize Mike McCready apparently has a UFO tribute band too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He takes on the road. He raises money for, I think it's Crohn's.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
From Crohn's, and he takes his tribute band on there. Or I don't know. I guess it would be a tribute band. I guess not a covers band. There's some kind of distinction in there that I don't really know.
So it's a UFO tribute band proper.
Well, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, if you think about it, Lights Out, they say they're a tribute, but I always understood that tribute bands like dress the part and look the part and everything. Well, Lights Out don't. It's just more a tribute to the music, you know.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a separate keyboard player and guitar player, and they didn't have a singer until recently. They've just engaged a frontman singer. So you know, I wouldn't call it, you know, they're not like the bootleg Beatles or something where they all dress up and look like, you know, but they sound the part, you know. It's good.
Well, I just thought that story was fascinating, how just through an Etsy shop.
Look, isn't that weird? You know, why they didn't contact me through my website, I have no idea.
They probably had no idea you were living in Texas and so readily available. They might have thought you were still in England or something.
Well, I don't know. I mean, how would they know through my Etsy site that I was in Texas? Maybe it says on there.
Okay.
Yeah,
I have a question about your Etsy shop. So you go out and you turn wood, but I didn't catch what product you're producing.
Mostly artistic, like pieces, like bowls or hollow forms and stuff. If you ever want to check it out, it's called Turn It Up. Funny, like being musical. Turn It Up Designs, and it's on Etsy. And there's about 25 pieces on there, I think. But here's the deal. Then I started getting people requesting, do you sell drumsticks and do you sell autographs? So I've actually got drumsticks on there and these little UFO drum heads that I'll sign for people and send out. But I've sold quite a lot of pieces off of it. I mean, it's not going to make me rich, and it's, you know, but it just ticks over, and you know, I'm just getting ready to put a few more pieces on, because since I hurt my back, I couldn't even stand at the lathe for very long, so I've just started turning again. So,
well, even if it made you rich, you can't take it with you anyway.
Right.
No, I'm determined to spend it all before I go.
That's a good. See, that's it.
My wife's having a good try at that as well.
Yeah, it should make it easy. If you're not going to get rich, it should be easy to spend it all before you go, right?
Yeah, it should be. Well, I got one daughter, so she's gonna, you know, I don't know what she's going to do with all my crap, man. I'm just such a collector.
Uh-oh.
I've got so much stuff, you know. I mean,
Yeah, me and Dave wouldn't know anything about that.
as I see that,
We've got our own landfill back here. You know.
I got about 3,000 wind-up toys in boxes in one of my attics here.
Wow.
I collected when I used to be on the road in the 70s. You know, killing time in the afternoon, I'd just go and like visit toy shops, and I had this thing about wind-up toys. You know, I figured if there was like you know, the end of the world and there was no batteries, I could clean up, because you know these things will go forever as long as you wind them up. So. But, you know, they're all packed away since I moved here. I'm planning to get them out of there again, but you know, we'll see.
Well, eventually we're going to have to get into some questions about the new reissue of No Place to Run, but I wanted to get into like something that's been a very interesting part of UFO history. And that is how Michael was recruited. Because here's the story. I'm going to tell you the story that I tell my students.
Right.
So the Scorpions and UFO were playing a gig together somewhere. I guess you can tell me where that gig was. Where was that gig?
In Germany. That's about the best.
Okay. So UFO goes to Germany, but your guitar player didn't turn up. Is that correct?
Well, first of all, the gear didn't turn up.
Oh shit.
And we got a call from I think then we had 2 crew or something driving like a 3-ton truck with the back line and the PA and stuff in it. And first of all, we get a call from them, cut the border somewhere. We're not going to make it. You know, customs have held us out, this, that, and the other. We're never going to get there.
Okay.
So Scorpions were opening for us.
Okay.
We were headlining. And it's just some small town in the middle of Germany, but it was a brand new hall they just had built. And it had all these beautiful glass doors in the front, and there was quite a big crowd out there. So there was no way they're saying, you can't cancel the gig, you know, the crowd will smash the place up, you know, you've got to play. So we, you know, cap in hand, went to Scorpion and said, look, guys, here's the deal. Our gig's not going to make it. Can we borrow your gear? And they said, sure. You know,
so it's the equipment first that you're borrowing.
First, exactly.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a new spin.
And Bernie Marsden, who was, God rest his soul, who was the guitar player at the time, he was traveling separately. And then we get a call from Bernie Marsden saying, I ain't going to make it. You know, he got his passport, or we're not ever really sure what that was about. We don't know, really. And probably never will know.
Was he a permanent member?
Yeah, he was a permanent member.
Oh, wow. I don't think I realized that. And also, I'm just confessing here, I just read on the wiki, right? That Larry Wallace from Motorhead fame was actually in UFO for a minute.
For a year or something.
Unreal.
I with him or with Bernie that I know. But yeah, they were both in there. Larry came in after Mick Bolton, the original guy, went.
Okay.
Then Larry was in for about a year, and then Bernie. Yeah.
So not to dwell too long on this story, but I must know. The story continues my version in my brain and how I like to believe it happened, which is probably horse shit.
Well, no,
thank you for playing along with me. I love this so much. I tell my students or anyone who will listen to my, dinosaur brain tells the stories of rock and roll. Pete Way and was it Paul? Who was it? Pete Way and someone from UFO were in the loo, in the bathroom.
It was all right. So anyway, so just to get back, then we had to go back to, because the whole people are freaking out, because we're saying, look, we can't play. Our guitar player's like, you have to play, and by this time, the doors were late and people were pushing on the glass and stuff. So we had to go back to Scorpions again and say, no, you said we could borrow your gear, but can we borrow your guitar player as well? Okay,
that's part of the story that I'm assuming that I had correct. Yes.
Right, yeah. So then it was Pete, because we were only a 4-piece then. There was guitar, bass, drums, and vocals. Right. So then Pete and Michael and Klaus, because Klaus spoke an amount of English. Michael didn't speak any English.
Okay, wow, I didn't realize that Klaus was the interpreter.
Yeah, he was in the toilet in the toilet stall.
My story just got better. It went diamond on me real quick here.
Fortunately, Michael knew some of the stuff, because we'd had a couple of albums out over in Germany, especially UFO One, that Come On Everybody on it and Boogie for George.
Yeah.
On there, Michael knew those songs, and so they were just quickly like, that A whatever, and Klaus was, so. But I mean, a lot of it was just jamming for hours, just to make up time, because we didn't have that much material, and which was cool with Michael, because man, he could play like a house on fire. So,
and he was 18.
Maybe even 17.
17, yeah.
Really young, really.
Yeah,
young.
my story set has him at like 15.
Well, I think I'm trying to think what year it would have been. Man, I don't know. I mean, I seem to remember I think he was probably 17. I think he joined the band at 18, which was like around 73, 74. Because we did Phenomenon on 74, I think it came out. But
so then he just quit the Scorpions.
Well, I guess, I think there was always kind of friction between him and his brother anyway. And once we'd seen him with that long blonde hair and the flying V tucked over his leg, and we kind of went and saw him play, obviously, we kind of went, we really want to go back. Well, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, I didn't have a lot to do. I mean, Phil was the and Phil and management, would make the advances and make the decisions and stuff. I mean, he would talk it with, but we always, get that guy. He's fucking great, so. Yeah, so
right.
And it is true, yes. And Klaus, thank God, he spoke some English, so we managed to get through it. Of course, we got moaned at afterwards. This wasn't the real UFO, the Scheisse rip-off and all this kind of stuff. But we did the gig, and the hole didn't get smashed. So
success.
Set. As far as I'm concerned.
So did Klaus and everybody remain friendly after you sort of quote stole his guitar player?
Yeah, I think so, because I think he was probably heading off anyway. You know what I mean?
Michael was out anyway.
I think he wanted to go somewhere. He didn't want to be under his brother's shadow the whole of it. The whole of his career. So
I'm not to put words in Michael's mouth, but I feel like he was always Scorpions is my brother's band.
Yeah, I think so. And I got that feeling from him. And I mean, and to be honest, from what I've seen over the last years, that's still going on. I mean, they're still feuding.
Oh, shit.
He never has a good thing to say about his brother. Really. So
that's terrible, because between the two of them, they sort of like flipped the whole rock and roll world on its ass with just their look and their attitude. And just as soon as you hear any Schenker play a guitar, you're like, that's a Schenker playing guitar. Yeah.
And, Scorpions, hugely successful band, give them their due, I mean, and, I've seen so much kind of like vitriol, been written, like Michael said about his brother. But as I understand it, his brother's bailed him out more than once, occasion. So, and to the fact now, I think that he had to end up giving him something like some part of his royalties or something, to help pay, because, but there don't seem to be much love lost between them. But there you go,
Yeah.
There was a sister as well that played.
Wow.
She passed away a few years ago.
Oh,
she was the youngest, but also I won't say unstable, but Schenkers are an interesting lot.
A talented, interesting lot.
Yes, they are. They are.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you.
But I haven't seen Michael in ages, but I understand he's doing really well, and more more power to him. Good.
He's playing better than ever, and he's about to start a tour called My Years with UFO. So yeah, I mean it's coming through Texas with my friends Armored Saint supporting.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Armored Saint. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Do you know where they're playing?
I think that it's in October,
right.
And they're coming through San Antonio the first week of October, I want to say.
San Antonio, it's at the Tobin Center, but I don't know the in the other cities.
Okay.
The dates are published on the.
Yeah, it's out there.
I'll take a look.
Yeah.
I'll call our agent because I think he handles Michael when he's here. So, I didn't get to see him last time he was coming through. I had something going on, but yeah, I'd like to go see him. That'd be nice. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the reissue of No Place to Run. It's 45th anniversary. The album originally came out in 1980. The reissue is expanded and remastered, I believe.
Yes, it is.
And it's a double CD and a triple vinyl, and
I don't have the vinyl. I've only got the CD, but I'll have to G them up. I'd like to have the vinyl too.
Yeah, and it includes a live performance from 1980. So
Which
do you remember that specific show? It's the Marquee in London in 1980.
In a word, no. And I mean, we played that place so many times.
Sure.
And interestingly enough, Neil Carter reminded me that we actually did 3 nights there. I guess. Okay. And they recorded, I don't know if they recorded all 3. I don't even remember them saying they were recording it, but the Marquee had a studio like built in kind of into the place. And I think they recorded a lot of bands there. In fact, I think they recorded bands without them knowing a lot of the time. But I mean, Phil's take on it was when the guy who's at Chrysalis, who's dealing with all these reissue, remasters, which I think is fabulous, by the way. Because they're digging up stuff that that got left behind, and they find in the vaults along with it, and this particular recording, and Phil's taking it was it's a bit earthy, which I don't know what. I mean, maybe it means just like, I don't know, primitive. I don't know what he means, but I think it's really good. I mean, and there was stuff on there that I'd forgotten that we used to do. I mean, there's like a breakdown in Lights Out that sounds like a bit like Trampled Underfoot by Zeppelin. There's just stuff in there. I went, oh man, I'd forgotten we used to do that. So, and it's not the band from the original album because Paul Raymond had gone by then. So it's Chapman and Neil Carter.
Yeah,
it's really good. I mean, you've not heard it yet?
No, I have not heard it yet.
No, it's. I mean, I think maybe he meant the sound because it's not the best sound quality in the world, but but the performance is staggering. I think. Just showing how on top of it we were then.
I'm happy to hear you say that because a lot of times these reissues come out and sometimes the band had nothing to do with it, or you find out that the band, isn't happy that it came out in the first place. So to hear you say that you appreciate it, that makes me
they're very good about include. I mean, it's only Philip and myself now that are really included in the loop because we're the only 2 that are on this. Of course, Neil was on this one, but on the live recording. Right. They send us all the tracks to approve and to make comments on, and I get interviewed for about cover notes, so I can. So yeah, and it's kind of cool, It's re-energized the whole thing.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So and like I said, when people see it come out, it's kind of like maybe hitting some younger kids who weren't really around the first time it came out.
Right. Now, that album, famous or notable for 2 things. One, it was produced by George Martin, who is famous for his work with the Beatles. Right. And 2, it was your first album without Michael Schenker, so you had a lot to prove.
Yeah.
What are your memories of recording that album, and how was it? Were there any special considerations knowing that you were doing this without Michael and the fans were going to have certain expectations? And tell me about working with George Martin and the fact that this is sort of a reintroduction in a way because you're putting forth a band that doesn't feature Michael now.
Yeah. We never really thought about that. I mean, Paul had been in the band. I mean, he took over when Michael did his disappearing act, on the eve of a huge American tour. So we were and Paul had been in the band with Michael for a while. I mean, as you probably know, earlier on, we had 2 guitar players, which is where we got Paul from. And then that didn't really work out. And then Paul left and we got Danny Peronell on keyboards. Then that didn't work out. He left and we got Paul Raymond, which was great because he played both, guitar and keyboards. But, yeah, it wasn't really, oh God, this is going to be difficult because Michael's not in the band anymore. It's just like forge ahead. Paul's in the band now, and I think it's a great album. I mean, working with George was really easy. I kind of figured he might be kind of difficult, and it wasn't really his field of expertise, that kind of music.
Right.
But as I understand it, and I may be wrong, but as I understand it, he was trying to drum up business for that studio in Montserrat. They sunk a lot of money into building that studio, and people didn't seem that keen to go there. So he was kind of offering this deal. I think Cheap Trick took him up on it too, where if you went and used the studio, he'll produce your album. Well, I mean, who's going to turn down getting an album produced by George Martin? So, but I was actually doing an interview with Dave Ling recently for he's got a thing coming out in classic rock about this reissue, and he said that he saw somewhere where George Martin made a comment about his brief brush with heavy metal and how he regretted it for the rest of his life. I thought, oh, very nice too. Thank you, George. And I thought it was a damn good album, but it was very different for him because, the way UFO works, I mean, we'd basically go in the studio with riffs, ideas for songs, no lyrics, because Phil liked to hear the riffs and everything and almost wait until they'd been, cut together, decide here's a verse, and then write his lyrics to them. Well, of course, George sat down and where are your songs? And we've got this idea and that. And Phil, I don't think Phil was even there at the time. He was on water skiing or like on the beach or something,
Wow.
And we said, we've got, well, John and Paul used to sit down with their guitars and play me their songs, but I guess we can try to do it this way. That was kind of like it. But he was, didn't really faze him much. He was very sort of laid back. I never saw him get excited or anything, Gin and tonics at sundown and it was he was colonial there, man. It was like kind of weird.
Wow, he was expecting pre-production rehearsals to be said and done.
Well, I guess, yeah. But he didn't know
no. He didn't know you guys.
Right.
I mean, any pre-production rehearsal usually involve going down the pub.
I figured, well, records are still made that way, but it can be time consuming if you don't have lyrics or ideas,
Hence, we owed the record company a fortune when the band broke up in '83 because, we spent so much time in the studio. You got Michael, the freaking perfectionist, Pete, who was getting things wrong all the time. Phil, who did his lyrics a line at a time because he's pretty much writing them as he recorded. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, apparently the Rolling Stones, Mick likes to hear Keith's ideas, and he goes away and writes his lyrics. So wrong with it, but it is time consuming, as you pointed out, and time is money in a studio.
Right.
But over the years since I've been back since 2005, we do things a lot quicker. I mean, it's in and out, try and come out with some of the budget in your pocket rather than, all spent on recording.
So not to get out of line, when was Mechanics in on the tree? Was that the next album or two albums?
Wild and Willing was the next one after this.
That's right.
And
Okay.
Mechanics,
Yeah.
which we did in Queen's studio in Montreux, Smoke on the Water. And
Mechanics was done there?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I used to cover We Belong to the Night.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, in a band I was right out of high school, a band it's a prog metal band, but we did a bunch of cover songs, but we loved UFO and we did We Belong to the Night. I mean, we did, of course, Lights Out and
I'll tell you a funny story. When I first got the thing with Lights Out, the tribute band.
Yeah.
On the list of things to do. So I had most of it they used from Strangers in the Night. So I listened to Strangers again, and I'm playing along with my electronic kit, the headphones and stuff. Well, We Belong to the Night. I got there's a re-release of the album. It was a live, but man, unfortunately I had it all put on a cassette, so I could do it in order of their thing. I had to turn the pitch down on the cassette. I couldn't keep up with it. It's like,
wow.
I mean, it's been a few years, 50 years or something, but I mean, there were some pretty hard tempos back
Well,
then.
just for listeners, you get excited up there sometimes and you play the tempos too fast because you're fucking wired and you love it. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
wired in more ways than one, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was gonna let you take that part. I'm sorry if we got out of line. Dave was about to get into something.
I'm happy that we're talking about this period of the band because I think that UFO, losing Michael Schenker would have probably killed lesser bands, but you guys put out some really solid records even
Agreed.
after he left. And Jason pointed to Mechanics and the Wild, Willing, and the Innocent. There's some really good stuff post Michael Schenker.
And then my last one, I think, was Making Contact. That was like a tree that came out. Yeah, there you go. Cool.
I've always loved this photo, the cover photo on No Place to Run. Do you remember anything specific about that photo shoot?
Oh, yeah, I remember a lot about that. In fact, that just came up in my Dave Ling interview. That actually, that you've got, that tape over the sign was actually there. This was a gas station that was only for London black cabs. So the London cabs, the black cabs.
Yeah,
it was specifically for them, and it was cold. Phil has this story that I was moaning in the background because I was cold, right? And he says that Pete was sticking his foot out to nudge him, going, "Look, Andy's moaning again." Right? This is his, that he was trying to back attention because I was moaning. Now, I wasn't cold because I got a bloody great fur coat on. What I was dying for a pee. To the point where I was getting really bad kidney pains because I really needed a pee. And Aubrey Powell wouldn't let me go and have a pee because he said, "No, man, this is great. I'm getting, if you go, they'll all wander off and we'll never get this back again." So it wasn't anything to do with the cold, although it was pretty cold.
Do you think he was right? Do you think if you would have gone for a pee that it would have fucked up the shoot?
Everyone wanders off, and he was just, and it takes, forever to get back if you get back to where you were. So, but I was really backing up, man. I mean, I was like getting serious pains in my kidneys from, I don't know if you've ever been in that situation where you can't pee, like if you're in a crowd or something and you really need to pee and you can't.
Yeah.
So that's what I was moaning. I probably was moaning. Like, I can't pay. I got, Aubrey, Poe.
I'm so glad I asked that question. I'll never look at that album cover.
I was going to say, look at Andy's face. Look at Andy's face.
No, but I was nice and warm. I had a fur coat on, but yeah.
There's a man who looks like he needs to pee.
Yeah.
Well, I like how the album title is The Color of Pee. Isn't it? The Color of Pee?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's the album? Hold the album title up. Yeah, it's The Color of Pee.
Yeah. Look.
I saw that when you were sitting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's a great shirt. I love that. Tell us a little bit about Pete Way, because Pete, to me, is like one of the classic rock and roll pirates. I mean, besides being a highly influential bass player in both his playing and his appearance, the haircut, he had the pants, he had the Thunderbird bass. So many people stole everything from him.
I mean, I still hear about. I mean, obviously Steve Harris, huge, Nikki Sixx, huge, big fan. But he lived it, didn't he? I mean, that was Pete. I mean, his stage presence was astounding.
Yeah, I mean, he created a Pete Way army. He created his own army just by being Pete.
And the interesting thing is, I mean, I spent a lot of years out of the band, and I wasn't around for his serious drug use and, and basically his deterioration. But when I came back in 2005, I was really shocked as to how much he'd gone downhill. And you tend to forget what a freaking great bass player he was and why people, worshipped him. Like you said, not just for his playing, but for his look and the whole thing, man. That strutting around with the bass down around his knees. I mean, he just had this incredible presence. But when I listened to some of the stuff that we did, I mean, this live show here on the re-release, the bass playing is just, there's not a bum note. There's not, he's just spot on. It's incredible. And there's also, I don't know, that Cleopatra put some stuff out a while back where there's a recording. You mentioned Larry Wallace earlier on. There's a recording, and I think it's from the Marquee again. That's why I said, I mean, we played there so many times, a live recording for the Marquee back when we were like a four-piece with Pete, me, Larry Wallace, and Phil, which is also really interesting and really good. And Pete is just absolutely phenomenal, the bass player. And you just go, oh my God, yeah. Now I remember, you know, because he kind of, you know, over the years, and you used to see him like, you know, messing up. I mean, it got to the point, I mean, and I love him dearly, and God rest his soul, and you know, and I miss him. But it got to the point, you know, when I was back in the band after 2005, where we would rehearse for a day. When we came back the next day, he couldn't remember anything we'd done the day before, you know, and it was just kind of, in the end, we didn't rehearse. We didn't bother because it was just a waste of time. And it's just his mind was, you know, it was just, he's just done too much damage, really.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame, you know. I mean, and the Pete Way band that I saw, it was kind of sad, you know, it really was sad. Even though he was still out there doing it, he was just a shadow of his former self, you know.
Well, the you know, the sweet years that you had with Pete, the Sweet Pete years.
Yes, Sweet Pete. Yes.
The Sweet Pete years. You know, where you guys were locked in. I mean, you know, you didn't invent double bass drum stuff, but you did a lot of Bonham type of things sometimes, and you had some double kick stuff going on.
Yeah.
And
I'd have two because my foot wasn't as fast as Bonham's.
Yeah, well, and isn't that most drummers' issue? Yeah, I have to have two because I don't have that, you know, wiggle foot, right?
Man, he's just so fast.
Yeah,
yes.
but what I was going to say is, you know, the rhythm section of UFO. Nobody has ever. I mean, that's part of the sound of the band. I mean, the foundation that you and Pete always created.
It was kind of sloppy tight, kind of, you know, Pete, because Pete was so loose.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I wouldn't, you know, I never had the bass in my monitor or anything. I didn't bother. You know, he'd follow me.
He was finding you. He was finding you.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, when I listen to some of these records, I go, oh my God, you know, it's just like we were right there, man. And no wonder people thought it was good, you know. So you kind of forget. I mean, it's been a long, long time, you know, and and things change. You don't always remember, you know, what came earlier. But yeah, some of those recordings are real eye openers to me.
Yeah. So do you think that do you recall is what I'm trying to say, being in, you know, supporting someone, and maybe you got a sound check, maybe you didn't on a different day, right? Could you hear the bass? Could you hear Pete?
I could feel it more than hear it.
Okay.
I mean, he had that real low, that Thunderbird low. So the backs of the Marshall cabinets were like, you know, like vibrate. I don't know if you've ever had to take the back of a Marshall. There's a wooden post in the middle of there between the four speakers.
Yeah.
That rests against the back.
Yeah, the support beam. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you really get going, the back will like, you know,
rattle,
growl again.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's part of the thing. So yeah, I could. I mean, you know, and it didn't really matter because I didn't really want to use him to keep time. I was the timekeeper, you know. And it should be that way. Let that be a lesson to musicians. He would be off, you know, and you know, forget to come in somewhere. So it's basically I just did my thing, and most of the time he was right there with me. Not so much in the latter years, but you know, in the good old Sweet Pete years, he was right there, buddy. And if you get a chance, I'm trying to think what the Cleopatra thing was, but yeah, if you could look it up, and there's 3 CDs with Chapman on, I think, or 3 or 4, and some of them, I think maybe even that Parker's Birthday one's in that collection. It's like 4 CDs and a vinyl, and the vinyl, I believe, is the Larry Wallace thing from the Marquee.
Wow.
And it's just really cool. I mean, it's very early. We're doing Chuck Berry back in the USA. We're doing, just weird stuff, you know, that we used to throw in there because we didn't have a lot of material back then. So, yeah, it's worth a little. Yeah.
I read Pete's book, Fast Ride Out of Here, and it's a great read. Anybody watching or listening, if you haven't read that book, go look it up.
I heard it was a bit dark.
It's a wild story for sure. A bit dark, I guess, but not entire. I mean, to me, when I read it, I got the impression of the man that I had before I read the book, because he was so outward with his personality. There wasn't really a lot of deep, dark secrets with Pete. I didn't know him like you knew him, of course, but
And they were from his wives.
yeah, oh yeah, he was God. That's right. He was married like 6 times or
Yeah,
something
so,
like
yeah. But yeah, those are the only secrets that he kept.
that. Yeah.
I don't know how he wasn't just in complete financial ruin unless
I
I think he was, yeah.
well, I didn't mean to state the inobvious there.
Yeah.
No,
Anyway.
I mean, he would never admit to it, but I think, by the time he left us, he was pretty much flat broke, I mean, and I don't know what happened to the album that he was recording. It was like the world's longest album, and he even had Mike Klink doing it for him, but I never heard if they ever got it finished, if it's ever going to come out or what,
Yeah.
I'd have been really interested to hear it. Although, having said that, I saw him at Sweden Rock with the Pete Way Band, probably around 2019, maybe, when we were there.
Wow.
And it was kind of sad. He was singing then.
Yeah.
And Clive Edwards, who was the drummer, he described him as a cross between Lemmy and Lou Reed. Well,
Oh, wow.
I don't think either of them would have been particularly happy with that.
That's a couple.
He was a mess. He was a mess. It was a really, really sad. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ross Halfin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when I saw Ross in LA, he was saying, I told him, you're not doing yourself any favors out there, because he just was, it was sad. It was kind of sad to watch him.
Yeah.
Well, it's there's something else that I wanted to just talk about, just as a guilty pleasure, is a lot of people still love Fastway. And you mentioned Lemmy, and and we talked about Larry, and Motorhead's never going to go away, and the man has passed on, right? But it's like a Dio, it's he's never going to go away. He's next door at the pub, he's always going to be. Those guys are always going to be here. We're still fucking talking about those anyway. What I was gonna get into is like. The name of the band, Fastway, is a lot of Fastway fans may or may not. A lot of them, I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence. The way is fucking Pete.
But he was only in there for like a week or something ridiculous. And
they couldn't change the name of the band because it was too great of a fucking rock band name.
Past Eddie Clark and Pete Way. And Jerry Shirley on drums, one of my...
Yeah, unbelievable.
Great drummer.
Yeah.
But I think Pete, I don't think he was very well thought of when he left that band, because I think he kind of left them very quickly.
Yeah.
I understand, and left them kind of in the lurch and went and joined Ozzy. Right. So, and he wasn't in Ozzy for very long either, so I don't really know the whole story, but I do understand that. And maybe it was something to do with recording contracts and stuff. I don't know. But, Fastway. And, in fact, the interesting thing, I never really heard much of them, but I was in the car the other day, and I had Ozzy's Boneyard on, and what comes on but Fastway.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, it was actually really good. Say
what you will. Say what you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a marginal hit. Fastway toured. I saw them in some of the same venues I've seen you.
Well, who replaced Pete then when they toured?
That's a good question.
I don't recall.
Somebody named McCracken.
He didn't tour with them. Did he? Did he record with them? I think.
No, he did. He's not even. He didn't even record the record.
No. He left that soon. Yeah.
The only stamp he has on that record is the name, Fastway. He didn't play on the record. He's not credited. He didn't tour.
That is so Pete.
Wow, that's what I'm saying. We got this long line of Sweet Pete stories here, and it just keeps going, and he's not even in the fucking room.
Sometimes when we're not off camera, I can tell you a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, I bet. Well, here's the deal. He's not even in the band. He's not in the room. He didn't even record. He didn't tour. There's his fucking name.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that album's a bit of an underground classic. It's a solid record. I mean,
Well, and then they're all over the movie sound, the Trick or Treat soundtrack. That's all Fastway,
yeah,
which is really interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It was Wasted, which I actually did a small stint in Wasted for a while.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then the Pete Way band. He liked getting his name out there.
yeah.
Well, he didn't even have to
Still
be in
getting
the
his name out.
band.
You're wearing his shirt. He's still getting.
I know. I wore it as a tribute to him because I thought he's bound to come up in conversation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Strangers in the Night. I mean, wow, we can't talk to Andy Parker and not talk about Strangers in the Night, considered by many to be arguably the greatest hard rock live album, certainly in the top 3 or 5.
Yeah, it makes the cut quite often, and they have these polls. It's usually up there with Live and Dangerous, Thin Lizzy, and Cheap Trick, Live at Budokan, and that. We're usually up there.
Kiss Alive. It's worthy. Rush, All the World's a Stage. I could keep going. Fog Hat Live. Unleashed in the East.
Which is amazing. I mean, and it's what, 79 was that?
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
So
it's a greatest hits album to me.
It is.
Yeah.
So you told me the last time we talked that, I think most people are aware a good bit of that album was recorded in Chicago.
Yeah.
And you told me that Chicago was a stronghold for UFO. Like you told me that you were kind of surprised that the album came out so well because in Chicago you guys kind of partied because the crowd would show up backstage and bring you all kinds of party favors. And
let me just say here, UFO in the 70s partied every night. Chicago was just like partying on steroids.
Okay, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of a blur in those, and I'm amazed, that I've come through it so well. I mean, and Phil too. I mean, still around. I mean, we've lost a few alumni over the last few years. But
Yes.
No, Chicago was always crazy.
Yeah.
And it's still probably our strongest market. If we, when we would be out on the road, I mean, we would do like 2 nights at the St. Charles Theatre just outside of Chicago still, even all those years later. So,
wow.
I got my drum endorsement because Ludwig were a Chicago-based company, and that was my dream kit, John Bonham notwithstanding. Yeah. And I actually had an endorsement from them for years, which was really cool.
That album, I mean, obviously, you mentioned some of the great live albums, and it's certainly up there with it. You guys probably, of course, you couldn't have known at the time that you're recording it or at the time that you released it. But when you look back, you've got to be pretty proud that people remember that record the way they do and revere it as well as they do.
Yeah, absolutely. UFO to me never seemed to be consciously trying to achieve anything. We just did it because we loved doing it. It wasn't like we need to have a hit, we need to go this direction, we need to do that. It was just always just get out there, get your head down, and we just loved. I mean, we spent a lot of time on the road, but when you're young and single and in a rock band in America in the 70s, it's like what's not to love, So, but we weren't one of those bands that said, okay, we've got to have a game plan here. It was just kind of the way it came out, and yes, and it did come out a really good record. There's some great playing on it. Even now, I listen to it and go, man, we were hot then. It was.
Oh yeah,
we put a lot of time in.
Yeah, and the thing is, you mentioned that you didn't consciously go looking to write a hit or to necessarily get on the radio. But when I look at the UFO catalog, you did so many styles of music so well. Like Love to Love could have been Stairway to Heaven, and Too Hot to Handle or Rock Bottom is your Rock and Roll All Night by Kiss. I mean, these are enduring songs, and they're very different. Love to Love is very orchestrated and lush, and then you've got of course you've got your hard rockers and your borderline heavy metal songs.
You find that with Zeppelin. I mean, they've got a real range of songs that they were played, but basically we missed it by that much. We just never we just never made that. In fact, Dave Ling was asking me about that. Why did you think we were so close? Lights Out did really well, and No Place to Run did well. But it just never quite. And whether it was Michael leaving, I think a lot of it had to do with management. Although Dave seemed to want to shy away from saying that in his article, but I think it had a lot to do with management, and also, towards the end, the record company was moving in a different direction, and they were really good. They stuck with us for a long, long time. But they're a business. They got and so it was more Blondie and Spandau Ballet towards the end. Than Jethro Tull and UFO and 10 Years After and stuff. So things change, but they're still behind. I mean, they've gradually gone through that catalog. And they're already planning the Wild the Willing remaster. So I've got that. I've got the Wild the Willing, Mechanics and Making Contact, and then I'm done because I was gone after that. Phil had a couple more, I think, after that. So, are
you saying they're going to reissue all of those titles?
I don't know if they'll keep. I guess they'll keep going. Yeah, I mean, I've already been contacted about Wild the Willing.
Wow.
So I know that one's coming, and I have no reason to believe they won't do the others. There's stuff. Because stuff gets. Because Crystal is basically own anything we recorded, so they've got all this stuff, and I'm amazed it's actually held up. It's tape, for God's sake. But it's
I'm sure they have to put it in the oven and bake it so it doesn't just fall apart.
I read that somewhere the other day about baking. I thought that sounds like a recipe for disaster. Freaking acetate.
Yeah, I've had to do that a few times. They just reissued a record of mine that I recorded when I was 19, 20 years old. So it's the 40th year anniversary, and we baked the tapes in around 2013, and it was the weirdest shit I've ever seen. Like literally putting the oven on low and having the tape sit on the rack for 40 minutes or whatever it was.
Some sticking together.
Yeah, the magnetic. I'm not a scientist, but they deteriorate, and what it does is it makes it stick back on the tape if you just kind of warm them up a little bit.
I would say because heat. Actually destroys magnetism, so you don't want to go too hot, or the thing will burst into flames. But I can't remember where I read that just recently about baking tapes. Yeah,
you bake the tape and then you digitize it, and then the tapes are just like a wall art at that point because you can't really bake them again.
No, and
but the fact that 2-inch tape or any kind of tape could even last for 50, 60, 70 years is fucking crazy.
That's kind of what I thought about these cassettes that I had. And it was only in the last, since I came back in 2005, well, they were already spent 20 years in various attics and stuff. And then there were only cassettes to start with, but they were still good. I mean, it was incredible. So yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, that's interesting you brought that up because I can't think what I was reading, but reading about baking tapes, I'd never heard of that before. But I guess it stops them. Otherwise, when they pull apart, it pulls all the oxide off, and cool.
Yeah, that's a real thing. I wanted to bring up something that is very interesting. I wouldn't say that it's amazing, but there's a lot of amazing bands that sort of fit in this box, and I hate putting things in boxes, but this is just a science project here. So, bands like Nazareth and Cheap Trick and UFO and Thin Lizzy and, whatever, Brownsville Station and Procol Harum and whatever, they end up being the ultimate opening band that gives the headliner a run for their fucking money. And you guys always were in that sort of like special category.
Well, that's the special guest slot was the was the best one because you got it was like with Max Webster UFO.
Yeah.
The crowd's already warmed up. You ain't worried about the I mean, unless they were a really, really good band. I mean, usually they would just do their job, and well, they didn't get very long. They didn't get many lights. They didn't get much of the PA, whatever, you know. But the special guest slot was the one where you could do the damage, you know. And we actually got kicked off some tours for going down too well, you know.
Wow, yeah.
Whereas I won't mention any names like Fleetwood Mac or anything like that, but
Hey, yo.
but yeah, we kind of got elbowed because, you know, stealing too much of the thunder, I guess.
Well, how long of a set? I mean, I can probably guess the answer, but because I've been in that slot 1,000 times. My point is, how long is your set, do you say, when you're touring with UFO or Kiss or whatever? How long was your set? 40?
Well, when we were special guesting?
Yes.
Yeah, I think 45 to an hour, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's pretty good. That's generous.
And yeah, usually the first band was like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you probably got 45, maybe with encore. I mean, if you were with Rush, you didn't mess, because Mike Hurd, I don't know if you ever met the guy. He was 6'10", and he went by the name of Lurch for obvious reasons, you know. Yeah. And he used to stand on the side of the stage with his watch, and, you know, you didn't go over time with him. But yeah, I think I would guess 45 probably most of the time.
It's still, that's a standard. It's still 30, 45, and then whatever the headliner does. Yeah, that's standard. Yeah.
When you recorded the Strangers in the Night album, were you headlining or opening?
Yeah, headlining.
Okay, Chicago again.
Yeah, we did like 3 nights at the amphitheater. They pulled it down now, it's gone. It was in a really rough part of town too. But yeah, we did 3 nights there. I think they recorded them all. And there were some other shows. I don't think the whole album is from Chicago, because we recorded a few gigs.
Right.
We were all those gigs were headliners. Yeah.
Here's something that's interesting. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm so sorry. Here's something that's interesting. I work for a company called School of Rock, music instruction for young people, and I've been there fucking 20 years. But the point that I'm making is we have an app that the students download on their phone, and we've got the rights to 2,000 songs or whatever. And I just recently directed a show with the kids, average age probably 12 years old, and we did a classic metal show. And as directors, we're advised, we don't have to stick to it all the time, but we're advised to try to use as much material that we have permission that's in this application. It's a method app. It's a teaching tool, right? And fucking Dr. Doctor is in there. So we did Dr. Doctor. And the kids smashed it. They did a great fucking job. And you know what? The kids loved the song. And it was great to see these kids like, wow, I've never heard of UFO. This song is weird. I like, they got the harmonies down. We did it with no keyboards. So it was two guitar players playing the harmony guitar, as opposed to Michael played a part where he could play both parts at the same time, and the keys would play the rhythms. We didn't have keys. It was the opposite.
We recorded that album.
Say that again?
Have keys when we recorded Phenomenon.
Oh, you didn't have that keys yet? Oh, okay.
In fact, the beginning of it, which I don't know when over the years it migrated to being on the piano, was acoustic guitar on the original. The original intro for Dr. Doctor was acoustic guitar. And some point, in the dim and distant past, it moved to the piano.
Yeah, so we were doing the original version with guitar, but I will tell you, or more of a question, I guess, just to be sure. Strangers in the Night has keyboards.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I just thought I was going crazy for a second.
What happened was, we got after we recorded Phenomenon, and I won't say there's no keyboards, because Chick Churchill did some keyboards on some of those albums. It's hard for me to remember back what he was. I think he was more on Lights Out and stuff. But anyway, Michael decided that he needed another guitar player, which is when we got Paul Chapman in, and they were playing that thing, the two of them together. Yeah. Right? And then when it didn't work out with Paul didn't want to be a rhythm guitar. He wanted to be a lead guitarist, and there was like bumping of heads and stuff, and Paul went his way. But Michael then practiced to learn to play it on his own, play both parts simultaneously. And I remember seeing Sinner sit there, bending both notes, and and of course he did. He got it down. So
yeah.
So now that's kind of how it's played. So.
Yeah,
And
it's played as a chord instead of a single note. Yeah.
Also played as the intro music to every Iron Maiden concert I've been to.
Pretty much.
That's so weird, because you see all the kids in massive Iron Maiden shows bouncing up and down to Doctor Doctor. But half of them don't. More than probably half of them don't know who the hell that is.
No.
But it's great walk-on music. It's great walk-on music.
Or they also don't realize that why Steve Harris wore striped pants back in the day either. They don't know who Pete Way is, so they don't know that Pete Way supplied Steve Harris's wardrobe.
Right. That's exactly.
Yeah. So here's the impossible question. In a career with so many milestones and so many great, I'll say, classic albums, what is your proudest album? What album if you could only pick one out of your catalog, which one would you hold up and say, I think this is my best performance, or brings back the best memories of the band because this time period was so great, etc.?
It's got to be Strangers, and I've always said that. I know that seems a cliche, but I always said to people, the band makes good studio albums, but if you want to see the band, go see them live. If you want to get where they're really coming from, and I think that's the thing with Strangers. It really does, show people, what we were about.
I really want to stress what you're saying right now, because I'm telling you, if you guys are part of this very small club that we've talked about in this episode already, about this like flock of live albums, and you guys, thank God that you guys did that. And I'm not going to call it a bandwagon, but, Kiss Alive and all the records that we talked about, and you guys did one, and Rush had one, same time-ish, you guys came in and did. Say again?
Scorpions.
Yes, Tokyo Tapes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I'm really proud of that album, just because, the fact knowing what condition we were in, that we actually managed to come out with those performances. It's amazing in itself. But it's just a great live. Really, to me, it sums the band up. It's like, I can go, man, that was me. That was my band, and I've been in it since the beginning. And, and I'd still be in it now if we were still touring, hopefully.
Well, it's one of those where if someone were to ask me or Dave, it's like someone, hey, man, I've been hearing a lot of things about UFO. I heard this song when I was, at the Iron Maiden concert. Someone told me that was a UFO song. Where should I start? Hands down, every time we say Strangers in the Night. That's where you start. And then you can take a right after that, and you can take a left after that. Doesn't matter which way you go after Strangers.
No, exactly. And that's what, with the Lights Out, the tribute band, that's what they said. Oh, we know most of the. I said, well, obviously over the years I've been in and out of the band. I said some of the arrangements have changed. Oh, we do all the arrangements off of Strangers.
Of course.
That was what that was.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
I have one last question for you. I'm sure Dave has 5 more, but I have one more. Have you heard? Do you know the movie called Spun? S-P-U-N, Spun.
No.
Jason Schwartzman is in it. Fucking Rob Halford is in it.
Right.
Debbie Harry is in it. Mickey Rourke is the star. Okay, so it's called Spun, and Andy, I would love for you to check this out, because on the soundtrack in the movie, I want to say Billy Corgan, who is a massive UFO fan. Billy Corgan, Smashing Pumpkins, you know who Billy Corgan? Yeah, of course. He and a female. I'm sorry.
I didn't know he was a UFO fan.
He is a huge UFO fan. So I want to say that he was the music director. Chose the music, submitted music for it. This movie Spun. Aside the fact it's a fantastic, crazy movie, and it's got these rock stars in it, right? There's a version of Love to Love that Billy records with a female singer doing harmonies and back and forths on the verses and such, that I'm getting worked up talking about it. It is so beautiful.
Really?
You must go hear it.
And what is Spun about? What's the movie about?
It's about doing speed.
Oh, right.
It's about doing fucking drugs.
And Pete's not in it?
No. Well, you know, one of the songs is in it, but Pete's memory is in it. But yeah. You've got to. I'm not saying you do yourself a favor and go live, but hey, find the movie, watch it on Netflix, find it, yeah, and just listen. How long is the movie?
How old?
Oh shit! I want to say that it's like early 2000s.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
You'll be able to find it. There's a.
That's why I wonder how they come and didn't get him in it.
There's a female star in it that Brittany Murphy.
Oh yeah, I know who she is.
So Mickey Rourke and Brittany Murphy are the head stars in it. But obviously it's loaded because Jason Schwartzman is in it too. Right. He's a big actor as well. Right. Yeah. But Rob Halford plays a porno store clerk, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, totally cool. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, but the version of Love to Love on there is.
And have you heard? I haven't heard My Years with UFO. Have you heard of any of these tracks on there, like with Axel Rose and?
I've heard the Axel Rose track.
Haven't.
Yeah, I mean, man, you know, I love Axel, great singer, but I just can't separate that song from Phil's voice.
Right. It would be difficult for me because it's the only one I've ever heard. You know, so.
Right. And I do have to say this, though. I've only heard the Axl Rose track once. Right. So maybe it would grow on me if I gave it repeated listens. But I went to it straight away because I think he does Love to Love. And, you know,
wow.
Right.
So now I got to hear it.
Yeah, I love the song. Yeah. I love Axl. So I was like, okay, I need to give this a listen. And for me, I just couldn't. That song is just so Phil Mogg. I mean, you know, Jason was talking about this female doing this version, and there's something about the quality of Phil's voice, especially on that song. It's kind of got a breathy quality or something, and it's just his voice is so attached to that song for me that I just can't hear anybody else sing it.
Yeah, it's interesting for me, having come back to the band twice, you know, how his voice has changed. I really like his voice, like later, and I almost prefer it to his early, you know, and it's got more gravitas and just kind of, you know, and some of the stuff that we've done on the last albums, I really just like the way he sang, you know, it's just, you know, I mean, and it was interesting because we kind of almost gone full circle when I first joined that band and kind of formed that band with them. We were just coming out of the blues era, you know, especially in England, you know, with all those bands like Chicken Shack and Fleetwood Mac and all those, you know, that big blues thing. And when I came back in, it was kind of, we'd gone back there. It was kind of cool, you know, even with Vinny, you know, it just seemed right to me. It just seemed kind of like, oh yeah, okay, full circle, and here I'm kind of back where I started, and it just felt good. So his voice is definitely, you know, it's one of those voices that no one else is gonna, you know, you've got your Michael McDonald and your Geddy Lee, and it's like you can't mistake those voices for anybody else, you know. And Phil's kind of like that, you know. It's
he has a warm voice, and you know, sometimes he can sing a song about having a bar fight, and then he can sing a love song, and it's the same guy, and you hear the guy, and you're like, well, this guy's been around.
Yeah. And I don't know. Have you guys familiar with Mogg's Motel? Have you ever listened to that?
Yeah, heard of that. There's some good stuff.
But did you know that Steve Harris's nephew is playing drums on that album?
Oh, I didn't. That.
Yeah, Joe Lazarus is Steve Harris's nephew.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, he was in that band. He was actually the drummer. Him and Tony Newton, who is playing bass on it and produced it with Phil. They were in a band called Voodoo Six that opened for us a lot of shows in Europe. Joe was the drummer and Tony was the bass player, and I think that's how Phil got. And Phil started writing stuff with Tony during the pandemic. Funny enough, you know, so. When we were off the road, so that's a small world, man. Steve Harris is, you know, I have Pete Way's pants, but now he's got his.
Well, it's not just Steve Harris, you know. There's a lot of people keeping you guys alive.
Yeah. Well,
for good reason.
For one,
Yeah, there you go. Another
27 years.
That's right. That's right. So this Lights Out band has been around for 27 years. That's crazy.
It is crazy because we know we were always under the damn radar anyway. I mean, you know, how do you keep a tribute band to a band that no one's ever freaking heard of? You know,
for 27
years.
Well, that's a you can attest to the fandom of UFO, and it's, you call it underground fans or not. Every metalhead I know, from thrash metal to speed metal to black metal to just rock and roll fanatics, everyone loves UFO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Including me.
That's right. Well, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. I know Jay.
We're playing, but you know, it is what it is.
Well, that's where I was.
What, sorry?
No, that's where I was going to go. I know Jason said I had 5 more questions, and I probably could come up with 5 more easily because this has been fantastic. I'll ask one last question, and you were kind of heading in that direction. We're talking about Phil, and he's, you know, he had some health concerns in recent years, but he did put out this Mogg's Motel record. So he is actively making music. So I guess the question to you is there any chance that we would see you and Phil on stage with Vinnie Moore maybe as a version of UFO?
If as Groucho say, you bet your life, if I had to bet my life, I'd say probably not. I know that he is discussing playing a festival in England with Mogg's Motel. I think it's difficult for him because those guys are all busy, the guys that he used in that band. They're all got other things going. But I believe, you know, and I've never had that. He's never told me himself, and he probably never will, that he's probably been warned off touring, you know, due to his health. Because, you know, there was a time after he had the operation, after his heart thing, he got all fired up and wanted to book more work over in the States, which he'd stopped doing, you know, for a while. And for a while he was really gung-ho. And then all of a sudden he changed his mind. Now, I kind of figure that maybe he had to go through this reevaluation after his a month or so after his operation, where they put you on a treadmill or whatever. And I kind of thought maybe his doctor said to him, you know, you might want to cut the touring out. Because it's very, very strenuous, you know, especially you get to our age. You know, you don't get to sleep, you don't get to eat properly. It's, you know, all that traveling and standing in line, and you know, it just takes it out of you. And I think that maybe, you know, I mean, I think, you know, maybe just going off and doing one show at a festival, you know, on a summer's day in England is fine. But, you know, actually getting in a bus and going on the road for a month, probably not. So I would say, you know, I would doubt it, but you never say never. He's still alive.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this in closing: if we never see another version of UFO on stage, you guys have left us with an incredible catalog of music that we are also indebted to your influence, and we're such fans of your music. And this, for me, has just been an honor today. I told you that the last time we spoke, and today was so much fun. I mean, I had a blast. I think I can speak to you.
And you know, and you can always come and see Lights Out if we get to do some more.
Yeah. I need to.
Thing.
Yes, of course, absolutely. Jason, do you have any final questions for Andy?
No, I don't. This has been amazing, and we appreciate you and your time so very much. And this has been an honor.
Anytime, guys. I love. Is that Wichita, the California license plate behind you?
That's Watchtower.
It's California, and that was the band Watchtower. It's an abbreviate. It says WTCH-TWR.
Well, maybe you were from Wichita.
No, that's Watchtower.
Oh, okay.
Watchtower. That's that prog metal band that I've been in and off and on throughout my career. That right out of high school, and we covered "We Belong to the Night" among many other UFO songs as early as '82.
Oh. Yeah. And the other one's Dangerous Toys.
Yeah, that's the one that I sold some records with, and that came out summer '89, and we did 4 studio records, and we played the Monsters of Rock cruises and shit like that. You know, it's legacy band. There's a million of them now. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? being in a legacy band. Yeah, no.
No, they produced us, so now they call it classic rock, I guess, because we were really old.
Right.
It used to be hard rock, and then or whatever, but now we're classic rock.
Well, they're not wrong.
Not wrong.
They're not wrong. As long as they keep mentioning me, I don't care.
Well, then
they call it what they want.
Isn't that a beauty? Isn't that the beauty of it all? As long as we're still here and talking about something that made people smile and get off the couch.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. Really
Yes, Andy, thank you so much.
Hope we can do it again sometime in the future.
Absolutely. It's been an honor. On behalf of my...
Wild and Willing comes out or something.
Yeah, I love that record. So that'd be another good excuse for us to get together. And we'll look for Lights Out in Texas. Hopefully you can do a few dates and we can show
I know he told me that Fitzgerald wanted us back in October. So, but he was looking for something up in Dallas over the summer. So we'll see. I'll let you know.
We'll keep an eye out. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave, along with our special guest today, Andy Parker from UFO on the Talk Louder podcast.
Thank you.